Welcome back to Elevate with Elisheva, a show that is based on healing from within, from tools from Kabbalah and personal development to get you there. On today's episode, I have a very special guest who will be coming in and talking about women's health. So this is a very, very, very special episode. So I am here with Sonja, the physical therapist.
Hi there. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for coming on. It's such a pleasure to have you on the show. You are so knowledgeable and amazing at what you do. So tell us a little bit of who you are, what you do, and your journey of how you got here.
First of all, thank you so much that I can be here. I think also you're amazing, and I really appreciate every opportunity for me to spread the word about what I do and to also connect with other therapists and people that work in the healthcare area, because I really believe that healthcare, and especially also women's health, which we will talk about today, is a group approach and is an approach of many healthcare professionals together. So I'm really excited to talk with you about women's health with you today, and also to share about what I do. So my story is, I'm from Germany originally, and I came here about 7 years and a little bit ago. I studied physiotherapy back in Germany, and then I worked there for a little while, and then I came here. So in total, I'm in business since about 7 years. I worked in the past in the field of orthopedic rehab and athlete rehab, and then the last 2 years, I really felt I have to follow this passion and this calling and this dharma of mine to go into the pelvic floor physiotherapy. That means I specialize in the area of the pelvis, the lower back, the hip joints, and everything that's inside of your pelvic bowl. That means all your bladder, your bowels, your reproductive organs, and really everything that is related to that. That means I help women that experience symptoms with their bladder, with their uterus, with their reproductive organs, with their bowels. There is something that's called pelvic pain syndrome. That means you can have pain in that area, but maybe you even have a diagnosis for this pain, like endometriosis, like PCOS. There's many names for this pain that we experience. And there's many symptoms. So I want to talk about it today and answer the questions of your audience and spread the word of what we're doing here.
It's really special what you're doing, because I've seen that this field has been so dominated by men for the longest time. And it's been so hard to find a woman that's able to actually understand what we're going through and really how we're feeling. As someone who also suffers from endometriosis, pelvic floor pain, hip joint pain, it's so difficult really finding that person. So how did you make that switch from going through your background in orthopedics and now to women's health? That actually gave me chills when you said that, because it's just wow, you are so on your right path.
Yeah, I mean, as it is with the people that are best at what they do, is just because we have things that are calling us to help all ourselves as well. So what my personal connection to that is I have ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune inflammatory bowel disease, since I'm 12 years old. And I mean, we can all live with bowel diseases, your life won't be over, but it's a chronic condition which we have to deal with, and we lifelong have to strive for healing, and we have to strive for health. So and I always loved movement, so I wanted to be a physiotherapist since I'm 12 years old. I'm living this is my calling, always have been, physiologically, but also then now when colitis taught me that healing is much more than just being healthy. It's a lifelong journey. And my pelvic floor developed symptoms, and I went to the doctors, and they just gave me those pills, and they told me we have to control the inflammation. But I'm but I'm a young girl, and I'm experienced really terrible symptoms of my pelvic floor, and I have these pains, and where should I go? And I was just on no one's agenda, really. I experienced pelvic floor pain. I experienced incontinence. I couldn't hold my urine or feces at times, so which is a really like shameful problems, which you don't know where to go. So then I heard about, like, in my area also, that there is physiotherapists, and we can take many courses to specialize in the treatment of the pelvic floor. And I was like, wow, oh my God. I mean, it's scary, right, to work in that area, but I'm like, I have to, just for myself, I have to learn that to help myself. And once I entered, and once I did all of these specification courses that physios can do to become pelvic floor physios, it was just a new world opening up for me. And I was like, oh my God, like, how do people not know that this exists? Like, how did I not know that this exists? And like, people still don't know. And like, it's so important. And like, it's just my dharma, it's my mission to spread this and to help people and give them the help that I didn't have at the time when I needed it.
Wow, the amount of times I'm getting chills and just like feeling shivers, because it's so powerful. Our stories and the way that you came out of it, you realize like, okay, I can empower myself through this moment. And this is knowledge that I can take. So you turned your wounds into wisdom throughout this whole process. And you're passing that wisdom, that knowledge, and empowering other women to do that, to do the same thing. Because a lot of times we feel so paralyzed. I know for myself, whenever there's pain in my body, I get fear. I feel doubt. I feel scared. And especially in Israel, where the doctors may not really speak English, and they don't know how, and they don't have patience. That's the biggest thing, is that they don't have patience. And it takes that process of healing much longer. And we even feel afraid to heal because we don't have that right team to do that with us.
Yeah, and I so agree with you. I think you said something really important right now, is when you said that when you get this pain, you get really nervous and anxious. So this is one of the biggest pillars of my treatment with my patients, because I know, because when you are chronically ill, pain and this chronic illness are a stressor. They are a permanent stress factor in our lives. It's not just that we experience pain, which is like evolutionary, a warning signal for us to be alert, because there is maybe some structure damage in our body, which in chronic illness, it's always there. So our body is always like vigilant, it's always like alert. Exactly. So this is like one part, which we know, which is there, we need to treat. But then what is about all these doctor's appointments we have to go to, all these times we're becoming like gaslit, where we're becoming like not seen and not heard and not validated in our complaints to the doctor, when we're not getting on our track in the healthcare system. Like sometimes we start with a healthcare system, and there's like this stop when there is like long waiting lists of a year, or there's always those blocks in our way. So we have a lot of like bureaucratical stones in our way, which are adding to our anxiety. We have the social anxiety that we have to cancel many appointments. I mean, I'm self-employed and I have a chronic illness, and I don't know if like many people know like what that means, you know, to be as you as well, like an entrepreneur, to be making your own money in this world and having a chronic illness, and you don't know what's happening maybe next week or next month, you know. So this is what we are humans, and when I'm treating a person, that's what I want to talk with them about, and to see like how high is your stress level, because in the end, especially also we see it with pelvic pain, especially with like elevated muscle tension in the pelvic floor and all of these things, which is super common. We need to include all of these stress mechanisms, and we need to first of all find movement routine and therapy techniques to reduce our overall stress and anxiety. And I know we can't hear the sentence anymore because it lost its meaning, but it's more important than ever. It is more important than ever. So everything that you do, that's why I love your stuff so much, your Qigong practice, your road mapping, like all of these things, it has to be a part. Even if you go to a physiotherapist, you need to add on those other treatments, because it's not enough. We need to work in a team. You need to do Qigong, for example, to calm down your breath and your system and all of these things. Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely. It's a very important part of the process when we're looking at the whole picture. A lot of time we're hyper focused on one thing, and then we don't notice that we're also neglecting all these other elements in the process, which can cause a lot of harm. So in this process, do you also work with men or only women?
So it's super important for me to always stress out that men and women have a pelvic floor. Still, I mean, we say men and women. I mean, there is like resigned by birth male, resigned by birth female. So there's many things in between, right? There is transgender, there's cis, there's like, so I'm just talking in those words because I'm really looking at the genitals themselves. So vagina owners and penis owners, you know, so just to be like in the spectrum. But yeah, so both of our sexes have a pelvic floor. The pelvic floor can have dysfunctions for men and women. And in the beginning, I was working with men as well. What I felt in the process is that women's health is super, super, super complex. And even though I'm already a physio since 7 years, but I'm just specializing in this area since like the last 2 years, and there's so much to them because women have like a lot more going on as far as like hormones, and like then we have all the pregnancy stuff as well. So I really felt I want to do my best. First of all, if I say I specialize, I really want to specialize. That means I want to take all my time right now to get to dive into the female world and to really understand things to detail. I do consultation with men because there is like some basic things that we can resolve in 1 or 2 sessions about, for example, pelvic floor hypertonicity, when the pelvic floor is just under more tension. Men experience that a lot. It could be, for example, symptoms like tailbone pain, general just like tightness in the area of the pelvic floor. It could be like always like ejaculating too early with intercourse, that they say I can't last longer than 2 minutes, like every time, even if I like think about my mom and stuff. But, so these could be symptoms for men as well. And in general, I would love to work more with men, but I just don't have the time right now to also do my best to specialize for their personal needs and psyche and yeah. So in the future, hopefully, I will definitely also treat with men. Yeah.
So you're really focusing on the woman's health. Have you seen any type of correlation between women who come see you and also that they're going through their own healing journey? Because in this episode, I really want to talk about women's health and their ability to heal from within and go get the help that they need. Because a lot of times women, even from my own personal story, I would always postpone going to see that doctor or going to get that help from someone because that one part of me didn't feel worthy to go get help, or another part of me couldn't find someone. And I was like, okay, then if I can't find someone now, I'm not going to find anyone ever. So that was the start of my healing process, but also something that prevented me from actually healing because I was holding myself back from receiving that help. And in your sessions, when you're working with these incredible women who are coming to you, and it's so brave and vulnerable for someone to come up and be like, hey, because it's also such an intimate session.
Yeah.
So is there something that you found when women come to you and they get the help that they need, when they speak up for themselves? Did they find it hard to do it, or something? Like, I guess it varies between, like, there's some women who are just like, yeah, I always get what I want. But then there's some, like for me, for example, I get what I want, but also a lot of times I struggle putting myself out there, and I struggle to heal and do the things that I love because part of me wouldn't always feel worthy of receiving that help that I needed.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying. And I mean, I know that because I think it's also kind of a trait of a chronic illness. If somebody has a chronic condition, that we don't have a choice. We have to keep going. And like, as women, we are carrying so much weight on our shoulders in our day-to-day with our families, whatever role we have in our social lives, we carry a lot of weight in our shoulders. So for us to say, okay, first of all, that you will go to see somebody, you have to commit to yourself that you have an issue. And I think that is, especially with those pelvic floor conditions, that's the first step. And that's really hard. And I say that also about me, like, when you experience those weird symptoms, for example, like you go to pee like all the time, you're realizing, wow, I go to pee like every 20 minutes, every hour. It's called overactive bladder. And like, and it's kind of like bothering your life quality. Or like you go to pee at night, and you're like, oh my God, I can't get good night's sleep because I'm peeing all the time. But you're also not sure if that's normal or if it's not normal. Right. So you're kind of just like putting it aside. You're like, okay, I have so much to deal with right now. This peeing thing, that's just, maybe it's just a small bladder. And then maybe you joke with your friends about it. Like, there's this mentality also like with postpartum moms that have a baby, that they're just like doing this black humor. They're just like, oh yeah, I'm not running to the bus already since years because then I will pee myself. You know, it's just like this. They're just like, they just make peace with it, that it's the situation, that's it, and they have so much things to do that they don't have time now to actually go into this topic. But I think it's also the combination of lack of information in the public. Like maybe if they would know, and if they would be bombarded with pelvic floor commercials, they would be like, oh, I can change that, I have hope, you know, and that makes me do this appointment. So I think it's a combination of, we're just all fucking overwhelmed. We have so many things on our on our list every day, that those things are also suppressed. And also everything that's related to toilet and sex is more subconscious. And for some people it's more important, for some people it's less important. I mean, not everybody has like this like fantastic crazy sex life that's like their number one, and they will pay like a lot of money to improve that. That's also fine. But like, as long as there is pain involved, or the life quality of a person just really goes down, like, we have to get those people to come to treatments. And that's why we have to spread the awareness that there is pelvic floor health treatments available. Yeah.
I really like what you said. You know, the first step is acknowledging, noticing that we have these pains and not putting them aside. A lot of times I see it within myself, between the women that I know, is that they're putting their needs and their health second, because it depends, like if they had a child or not, or the sense of worth that they have. And just a lot of times the people become numb to that pain. I've realized when I'm working with people in Qigong, where it's a healing practice with movement, that they notice all of a sudden, they're like, wow, my back actually really hurts. I did not notice that before. Or that they have so much pain in the wrist. And so I found that they're really disconnected from the pain receptors in their body. It says as if they're not in their body at all to notice that their lower back is hurting them, or they have really bad back pain and pains in their stomach. They can't relax. They don't know how to relax. And that actually causes a lot more harm when we don't even know how to relax. Like, all of our muscles are tense. And ever since I started following you on Instagram, I've been learning so much about the pelvic floor. It's incredible, the information that you're sharing. And I really highly recommend, like, this is like a major plug-in to follow you, because you give so much information and it's so relatable to learn from you. And the exercises that you share, I had no idea that the pelvic floor, the health of the pelvic floor was so strong and so meaningful. I learned in Qigong that like the pelvic floor is our base. This is like the foundation of our body, that everything comes from. This is our center. So if, let's say, there's a problem with the kidneys or the bladder, it affects the whole entire system, the whole system of the body. So it's really beautiful to see how these two things relate. But just to, like, that first step of like acknowledging that we have these pains, what would you say is the next step to, after you acknowledge that you have certain pain, probably in the pelvic floor, lower back, what would you recommend someone to do?
Yeah, so great question. I think, as you said, acknowledging is already very hard at some point, but once we did that, we need to actually reconnect first to that area. So what does it mean to reconnect to your pelvic floor? And so it looks like a slogan, reconnect to your pelvic floor. It looks big, but like, what does it mean? Right. So reconnecting, I'm using in my first session, how does this first session with me look like? So once a woman is booking in with me, first of all, we have like a free consultation call up front, so we can see how are we vibing, how is the conversation, are we a match, can I help you? Should I refer you to a doctor first, maybe to do some more checkups? We make the plan. Then the woman is coming into me. Every initial session is really individual, and I'm always following the person's lead, and I'm seeing what is their history. Is there maybe trauma in the past? Is there abuse in the past? Is there like anything I need to be careful with, to choose my language correctly? And then when we meeting, so we're having a very thorough initial talk where we just go over all the medical history. We do a physiotherapy assessment, basically. So all the medical history, the medication, if there were any surgeries, if there's any like back pain, neck pain, the jaw is very related. If there's any like jaw tension, if there are breathing patterns, we're looking at like general movement patterns, at like squats, lunges. We're doing all of this assessment. And then after we have like all this talk about toilet habits, about
that's important.
About sex life, if the person wants to share. Again, it's very individual. I'm not sitting there and saying, tell me. I'm saying, do you want to share? And we're sharing everything that needs to be talked about, but this is essential. I mean, toilet stuff we're doing every day. We go there every day. So it's really important for us to figure things out. And this questionnaire is really specific. So I'm able to know by like 80% what's roughly going on already just by those questions, because the pelvic floor has its specific, hints for me to tell me what's going on. And then if the woman is consenting and she feels ready to have a vaginal assessment or pelvic floor assessment, that's what we're going to do after. I will explain what I do there also in detail. But we said about the reconnection. So what does it mean to reconnect? So before I'm even assessing the woman myself, I'm asking her, when did you look at your own vulva the last time? When was the last time you saw your own vulva in the mirror? And most of the women tell me it has been years. It has been a long, long time. I mean, if you imagine, men are wearing their penises between their legs, so they see them every day. So that, what does it mean for our brain and body connection? I mean, we have a map of our body in our brain, right? So if I see my hand every day, I'm very connected to my hand, to my arms, to my legs. But we never see our vulva. It's between our legs. So this is the first reason it makes it harder for us already to reconnect. Like we like, and then we look at our vulva, like, oh my God, this is how my vulva looks like. Wow, can you explain me what's going on? So like sometimes I'm literally just explaining the woman what is the different parts of her vulva, and that everything is beautiful and normal. And that's the most important. Like everybody wants to know, am I normal? So that's the first step to reconnect first. Just to look at your own vulva is a perfect step to reconnect. And I really recommend this as like a thing. If you guys
deep
listening
healing
to this,
practice,
look at your vulva today and just like go to a mirror and just like a little child, just like bend over and look at your pelvic floor, just to like say hi, like it's a beautiful part of our body. Looking at it, first of all, we can think about our pelvic floor and just like say if we can feel it when we're sitting on our sitting bones, and if we can feel our pelvic floor when we're breathing, how he's dancing the tango of breath when we're inhaling and exhaling, because he's very connected to the diaphragm actually. We can touch our vulva whenever we feel like it, right? So that's again touch, stimulation, brain connection. So all these little things, we can visualize beautiful images when we do, for example, our relaxation exercises. We can imagine the flower is opening and relaxing. There's many like different images you can put yourself. But I think to reconnect, the most important thing is when we go also by like neuroscience is looking, imagining, and touching, like all these senses, sensations. Like this. We can strengthen the nerval reconnection, mind body map, and that will also help us by then strengthen the muscles, relax the muscles, improve yeast infections, deal with pain, because in the end our brain controls everything and we need to connect to the brain. So that's what I would do, for example, like in the first session, to find out where is my patient standing on their journey of reconnection. Some women don't want to look at their vulva at the first session. They say, you can look, I don't want to look. And that's completely fine, because they are not there yet. And they will take all the time they need. I will just give invitations every time. And then the pelvic floor examination itself basically is an examination where we look at the skin of the pelvic floor, of the vulva, of the rectal area. We're palpating the skin just to see if there's any infections, if there is anything going on in the skin area. And then I will do an internal vaginal assessment where I would wear my glove, and we go inside to check the organ height and posture. And we check the general tension of the muscles of the pelvic floor, if they are just very tight, and contracted, or if they are very like numb and not responding to, like, if I say, okay, maybe to contract, exactly, and there's not a lot of action happening, so we can say, okay, they may be a bit too hypotonic, so like too little tension in there, and like this we can build the strength and like or relaxation program for that person. But in general, 80% of the people I'm seeing right now, the issue we're having as like the silent epidemic is the tightness and the stress is I see that a lot. So also for women that are leaking urine, and I want to say this really clear, leaking urine, always people think, oh, it's because I'm weak, and then they start to do Kegels, like pelvic floor contractions, and then they leak more. So leaking can be a sign of very, very tight pelvic floor or loose pelvic floor. But if you imagine, this is my pelvic floor, okay, my arm. So we want our pelvic floor to be responsive. That means we need the whole muscle, the range of motion of my arm, the whole muscle range of motion to be able to hold the urine, right? So when I have a really full bladder, and let's say I'm cuffing on this full bladder, but my pelvic floor looks like this all day, every day. He's already contracted because I'm holding in a lot of stress. And then I'm squeezing, and then I'm cuffing. He will not be able to do the holding of the urine because it's already so tight, and then the person will lose urine. So that's really important to keep in mind. So
important. I really find it so interesting how you're able to tell about the woman that you're seeing just by understanding her pelvic floor. It's as if a map of what's going on within the woman, what's going on within her emotions, how she's feeling mentally. And because the body tells, it's a map of how we're going on internally. There's this really interesting Kabbalistic teaching that says Panim, our face is Panim, and it's very similar to the word Bifnim. So on our face, we're able to see how we're feeling within ourselves. So it's very, very powerful to, whenever you see someone's face, and you can really tell if they're going through something good or if there's something going on with them. So the face is the story. So not only is their face able to reveal to us how a person is doing, but also the pelvic floor is sort of the map of the woman's internal being. I find it so fascinating because a lot of times we can say like, okay, we're feeling good. But then all of a sudden you're noticing that it's really tight over there. And we carry a lot of stress in our stomach, our pelvic floor. We're always tense. I know for myself, whenever I'm super stressed, and this is knowing the language of your body. I really believe that when we learn the language of our body, that self-love, how our body navigates, it tells us a story, and we're communicating. It's the body, the minds, and their soul. They're all going through this beautiful, harmonious, like, state of being. But when one part is not communicating, then something is up. That's something like we should go there, figure it out, dive deep, dig in. And a lot of times people are fearing that, going through that route, because it does talk about healing, and healing can be super scary, especially if someone's coming from trauma or pain or something that they don't even want to go there. So for someone who doesn't want to see these amazing parts of themselves, then that's a whole healing journey. And so not only are you doing pelvic floor healing, you're also doing tons of emotional and spiritual and mental healing as well, and sexual healing. It's this whole thing that you're doing. You're looking at
healing is messy. Healing can be so messy and dirty. Like, it's not what people imagine. It's like this. It's going like really up and down, and it's messy. And like people sometimes they think it's like this beautiful, this like breathing, one hand on your chest, one hand on your stomach, kind of like just inhaling, exhaling, and then you will just bloom in your new and your new beauty, but it's messy. We need to dig
So
down. We need to
messy.
bring the unconscious on the table, on the surface, and look at it in its ugly eyes. As
Yep.
it's messy, and it's not for the weak. Definitely, healing is tough work. And also, when we have chronic illness, I know, for example, this my colitis is an emotional trauma from my childhood, and like from things that happened in that time when it broke free, like with 12 years old in school, and all the stress I experienced. And it's always scary to start do your shadow work, as I call it, because once you dig into that like balloon filled with dirt, you never know what else is going to come up. So like, for example, I have like my next week is full of workshops and meetings, and just like a few days ago I dug something up of the past, and I was like, oh my god, I had like this amazing realization about a trauma that I had. And it is just coming up now. It's just keep on coming out. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't have time for this now, right? Like, to do emotional work right now. But sometimes it's like that. It's coming up at times where we, we can control it. But another thing that came to my mind when you said about your Qigong and that the Panim and the facial expression and our emotions. So one big base of my work is the polyvagal theory and working with the vagal nerve, which the vagal nerve is a part of our nervous system. It's a part of our autonomous, of our unconscious nervous system. So if you heard like parasympathicus, sympathicus, and the vagal nerve is part of the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for rest, digest, and down regulation. The vagal nerve is supplying our also like partly sits here in the back of our neck, supplies our heart, our breath, like the organs above and below the diaphragm, but it's also related to our mimic expressions. So that means that when we are in a fight, flight, or freeze stress response that is evolutionary to keep us safe and alive, that's what we usually are in when we are in business meetings, when we are at work, when we are like functioning, we're out and about, right? That means that our body is postponing our recuperative functions like healing, digesting, pooping, peeing, like all these things to later. With peeing, it's a bit more complex, but like he is recuperating later on. That means we need to have that break to come home and to come to a place where we can calm down to our parasympathetic nervous system. When our breath is calming down, we are able to take a long exhale and to relax. That's when our body is able to have a poop, is able to get intimate with our partner when we're relaxed. And for many people, it's just so hard to switch between those two modes. So we are, every one of us, especially when we're living in Tel Aviv, we are experiencing something. It's called the sympathetic overdrive. We are stuck. We are stuck in our stress response. We're not able to get intimate with our partner because we're still so many thoughts in our head. We're not like creating enough like lubrication maybe in our vulva because we're still the lubrication in the vulva needs the parasympathetic nervous system to kick in. And that's also why like painful sex is a big thing when we're stressed. So we need to see this big picture. And then back to the vagal nerve and the facial expression. So once we are able to connect socially, social interaction is a sign that we are able to calm down. Like if you feel comfortable with someone, we can smile, we can have a beautiful conversation. That is something very positive, and that is related to our parasympathetic, which we need to calm down, to have a great poop, to have like a romantic relationship with someone. And that's why, again, it's also important that we have connection in our life, that we feel seen, heard, and validated in our conversation with somebody. This is all going to stimulate our parasympathetic nerve, which then can create the environment for healing. So everybody who wants to heal, doesn't matter if you cracked your ankle or you cracked your vulva stomach or you injured whatever part of your body, we need, first of all, to find a way to get to this parasympathetic land of relaxation and creating an environment for the body that signalizes all the tissues in our body. Now is the time that we are not running, we are not in threat, we are safe, and you can start with the healing.
Wow, that really is so powerful to communicate with our body, because our body can still be in that trauma. Although it happens like 10 years ago, our body can still relive it every single day. Our brain can still secrete those stress hormones that will be teaching the body to be in fight or flight or freeze mode all the time. And we don't even notice that. So teaching the body, navigating the body into relaxation through meditation, movement is so powerful. And before we wrap things up, I want to bring into a third point of like how women can start their healing journey, if it's with their pelvic floor, with their bodies. It was, first of all, acknowledging that there's pain there, there's some discomfort. And number two, we said it was to reconnecting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I thought for a third one is commitment, but also recommitment, because it's so easy to, I don't know, for some, like you can start the process. It's easy to start the process, but it's even harder to continue that healing process, because healing doesn't happen overnight. It really unfolds, like how it's happening for you, that something came up for you about the past. It's so crazy because it's also same thing, like phenomenal how things are working out right now. Also like all this energy of this month, like things from our past are surfacing. And they are really, really coming in strong and giving us so much healing. So even if something does come up from the past, then it takes that recommitment to go back within yourself and love those deep, dark parts of ourselves, because it's so easy to love ourselves when we're nice, when we're kind. But the real work happens when we love those dark parts that we would say, no, that part doesn't deserve my love. No, Dafka, actually, that part does deserve our love, and even more love, because that's the healing. That really is that healing, to love those parts of ourselves.
Definitely. I could not agree more. I think you wrapped this up like really, really beautifully. And I think the last thing I really want to say, which is really important and close to my heart for everyone that has a chronic pain condition, whatever that might be, is validate what you feel, because especially also as women, society is not validating us because they don't know enough about what we're going through. And I think validating yourself first and seeing your pain and hearing your pain and validating what you feel always gives yourself better boundaries, also how to deal with it, and just then other people can validate what you're going through. Because if you're always saying I'm fine, like we need to find the middle somewhere. Like we can't like downplay it all the time. I know we have to function, so we can't like say I feel horrible, thank you for asking, I know, but like we need to find the middle. So validate what you're feeling. Don't just always push through. And let people know about how you're feeling. Sometimes it's great sometimes also to be vulnerable and to share, rather than just keeping it in all the time. But like, we have to find the middle there somewhere, I guess. But
I think that's a really important part, is that validation, because we would always like look for outside validation. But the moment that you start validating yourself, then that's really where the healing begins. Like, okay, I acknowledge, I'm seeing it, I'm reconnecting, but that validation of saying like, okay, I'm worthy of validating this. And that's where it all starts. It all starts within you. Wow. Sonja, this episode has been amazing, and such a pleasure to have you.
With you for days.
I know, me too. I really feel that as well.
Nothing more to say, but I think we're just going to do this in another podcast.
Yes, amazing. I'd love that. I think for the next episode, let's definitely do a poll. Ask our audience, like, hey, what do you guys want to learn? What would you like us to talk about? And let's dive deep into this, because there's so much more that we can do.
Yeah.
And with that, you can find me either on the Instagram at elisheva.lavi, and you can also find Sonja on her Instagram at
Sonja /
the physio
underscore.
Yeah, so Sonja _ the physio.
Yes, that's
and
me.
Wow. And Sonja's amazing. Feel free to like message her, talk to her about this, and gladly we'll do another episode. And you can also find this episode on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube if you feel called to watching it live. And until then, Sonja, thank you so much for joining. It was a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Elisheva, for having me. It was really a pleasure.
Wow, you're welcome. And yeah, see you guys next week.